Thank you all for being here, and I'm delighted to be back at the Riordan Center. I have a long history with this organization, and it's a treat and a joy always to be here. The last time I was here, well, maybe not the last time I was here, but the last time I was at this podium was in 1998 when my first book came out. And I heard that there are people, Jan just told me, there are people here who were here 12 years ago. So that's pretty amazing to me. And I thank you very much for being back. I want to give you a little history about my association with this organization before I plunge into my new material. But I met Hugh Riordan in the late 1970s when I was a writer at the Eagle Beacon. I worked at the paper for several years while Dean and I were living here in Wichita. And while I was here, Hugh launched a project called the Personal Health Control Program. And I was a pilot study person. I did it as a reporter because I wanted to know what this strange business was all about. And out of that came a newspaper article, which I have a copy of, and I love it because you can see how I looked 30 years ago. Also how Hugh Riordan looked 30 years ago. We looked pretty good. This was a study. It's fun. I'll leave it here so you can see it because it was really fun. We spent about a month, I think. I can't remember all the details, but working on diet and vitamin C, of course, and exercise. And actually, it was Hugh who introduced me to exercise as a component of well-being. I had been pretty staunchly non-physical most of my life. The only competing I did was intellectual. And, you know, I mean, I had to be a good student. I was a good professional worker, and I didn't have time to exercise. Now, mind you, I was in my 30s. So exercise seemed like one of the things that just was automatic in my life. And then when we moved, Dean and I moved back. We're from Oregon, and my husband Dean is back there, so I'm talking about him. But we left Wichita, moved back to Oregon in the end of 1978, and landed in Eugene. Our home state is Oregon. And Eugene at that time was the birthplace of the jogging movement. Everybody was running, and I got a job on the newspaper there. And in order to be socially acceptable, I had to run with people on lunch, you know, and it was a new world for me. I really hated it. I didn't like running. So I decided I would be the person in the non-runner control group. I stood on the sidelines at community events and took pictures of people and just said, no, I'm a klutz. I don't do physical things. In the 80s, however, I got an assignment as a reporter to write about this new walking trend that was emerging. People were actually considering walking a legitimate exercise. There was a walking magazine created. Walking groups were forming. And so I went to write about the walking trend, and in the process, I got kind of intrigued. I discovered that I didn't have to run to exercise. I could walk to exercise. That felt pretty good. I started joining a walking group. I started walking. Then I decided that if walking was good, maybe race walking would be better. I got caught in that part of me that liked to compete intellectually and professionally now got caught in maybe it'd be fun to compete physically. I learned how to do that Olympic-style race walking, and at age 46, I entered my first track meet as a race walker. And for 5 years, I competed in masters level race walking events. And masters in this case is a euphemism for old people. And so for 5 years, I competed as a race walker. And it was a very significant turning point in my life. I discovered in this process of learning to be an athlete how to use my mind and my body together instead of adversarial, which is a relationship lots of us have with our bodies, trying to control them, trying to restrict them, try to discipline them. I had never learned how to work together. In this process, I had to learn how to use my breath to be an athlete, I had to learn how to use my self-talk. I had to be able to say, yes, I can, instead of, this is so stupid. The things that come into your head to block you. I had to learn how to imagine myself as being graceful and active, not a klutz. And I loved it. It was a discovery period. When I started getting aches and pains from the level of training and competing I was doing, I decided it was time to stop competing and go back to just walking for exercise. That would be enough. As I walked for exercise, I began to recognize that the tools I learned as an athlete about breath awareness, about self-talk, about visual imagery, were the same tools that I had learned to use in meditation and relaxation programs, including the relaxation tape Hugh Riordan had made in 1978, and I'd been listening to every day as part of that program, the Personal Health Control Program, which was a lot about breath awareness. I know that many of you have done meditation or relaxation techniques, so you understand and know those tools. When I realized there was this overlay of meditation and athletic performance, I sort of got an aha and thought, oh, this is the book I wanted to write. And so I wrote The Spirited Walker, which is about the integration of meditation as an active aerobic activity. It's about the inner game of walking. And I came here, Hugh Riordan, let me tell you, was ecstatic when I got religion. I mean, when I finally saw that exercise was important, he said, come back, we'll have walks in the parking lots. I did staff walking programs. He got somebody out to videotape me and teaching a walking class. I mean, he was a huge supporter. And my life was really rich and full, and I started doing a lot of teaching of walking as a way to be both physically active and to get stress release by putting your mind and body together. Powerful tool. And as I was kind of experiencing this burst of life and activity, which went on for a couple of years, 2 years after I was here, I was in the sauna at the health club where I exercise when the weather's bad in Eugene, Oregon, and discovered a strange lump in my left breast that was not familiar. And that lump changed the course of my life. That was 2000. In 2000, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I found, then when I got diagnosed with that, first they took the lump out, then they found out that it had gone into the lymph cells, and it meant a year of treatment, basically. I know I'm not alone. In a room this size, there will be others of you who have been on this journey also, of surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. There is when I got this diagnosis, I knew that the only thing for me to do was to take a walk. I mean, because you know what happens with that kind of fear that comes when something devastating happens, it kind of freezes you. And there's a quote from Robert Frost from a poem, a line from one of his poems that says, the best way out is always through. The best way out is always through. I love that line because to me it means you just got to head into it. That's the only thing you do. So when I was frozen, I knew I had to head into it. I went out to Mount Pisgah. Mount Pisgah is a gentle hill on the outskirts of Eugene. It's a county park. It has a climb to a knoll. It's about 1.5 miles up. It's not steep, but it's going up. And what I like about this climb is that it's ceaseless. Once you start, if you have a goal of getting to the top, you have to keep going up, and it pushes you a little bit. I like the metaphor of it, but I also like the physicality of it, that it makes me work hard. This time when I went out to Mount Pisgah, I knew that I had to stop that crazy spin in my head so that I could just get through the next decision. So I started out using a chant in my head that was something I had used backpacking, and I was saying to myself, 1 step forward at a time. 1 step forward, pacing. But it went like this. 1 step. What did I do to deserve this? Wait. 1 step forward. Maybe it's because I used to, 1 step forward. Well, I bet it's, no, 1 step forward. What am I going to do about that? Speaking 1 step. You see what I mean? I mean, it's coming back, fighting this crazy spin in my mind. And it takes me about 35 minutes to get up this slope. Generally, I walk it often. I love it. When I got to the top, I was breathing a bit hard because I'd been working out and I'd been fighting with my mind the whole time. And I looked out on the Willamette Valley, which lies below the slope where I live, and I looked down, and at the bottom of the valley is the Willamette River flowing through it, and I could see the river, and I've seen it 1,000 times. But this time when I looked at the river, I saw it differently, and something in my head said, when a river gets polluted, we don't ask, what did the river do to deserve this? We try to clean it up. Now, yes, we'll look back eventually and say, how can we prevent this from happening again? But for this moment, I could see my body as a river that needed to be cleaned up, rather than something that I had done to let this happen. I mean, I honestly don't, but I believe it's true. It became a miracle for me because I could move forward into chemotherapy, which is a horrendous thing to move forward into, but see it as cleaning rather than looking for blame. It allowed me to be active, proactive. It was a miracle to me because it changed my point of view. I believe the miracle, well, let me tell you what the miracle was. I mean, it was oxygen. Oxygen really is the miracle, and when you walk, you get the miracle. Because the combination of walking and focusing my mind allowed space for oxygen and energy to refuel my lungs. And I can tell you the science, you probably know the science about how when you walk at a pace that causes you to breathe hard, a little bit hard, you're getting 10 times as much oxygen as you do sitting at these tables. 10 times. Oxygen is life. Oxygen is energy. Oxygen is what speeds up your brain, helps you be creative, helps you solve problems. These are resources we need. So this energy carried me through my treatment. And 1 year after treatment, it carried me back to the cancer center where I'd been treated, and I said to the staff there, I'd like to offer a walking class here at the Cancer Center for patients and supporters because walking has been so significant in my recovery, in my staying balanced and getting my feet on the ground. All those metaphors of walking are so true. They said, great, you know, a volunteer, everyone's happy. So I offered a 6-week walking program at the Cancer Center. Once a week we met, we walked in the parking lot because I said, we need to walk here. You have to learn how to walk where you are, not insist that you have to go to a park. You have to be in the right place, the right time. You have to walk where you are. So we walked in the parking lot. And that was a profound thing for me because then I saw how other people could use the tools that I'd been using. And I now teach every year in April. I offer these classes at the Willamette Valley Cancer Center because that's the anniversary of my diagnosis. It's a way for me to continue to give back there. Also to honor the cycle. But it led to my teaching in lots of other cancer-related settings. At a retreat for women with cancer and oncology nurses, which is 4 days each year. I've been on that faculty, and I've been in many teaching situations. I have loved this, but what I heard from people over and over as I taught classes is, do you have a handout? How do we learn how to use these tools? Watch your breath, watch your self-talk. How can we do this? I said, well, pretty much it's all in this book. I just took it out of this book. And they'd say, well, yeah, but don't you have like a guide that says, do this first, do this second, then do this, and tomorrow do this? And I realized that when we're in a crisis, people really need a map. You can't make one more decision is one more too many. And so I saw another book, and that was Healing Walks for Hard Times, which is an 8-week walking program. That's like a guide. It's a guide. Start here. Start at 10 minutes if that's what you can do. Do this for a week. Do this for a week. Anyway, the vision for that book came out. What I learned also in this teaching was that healing isn't just about cancer or big shocks. We all need healing. I mean, sometimes we need healing from exhaustion. Sometimes we need healing from crankiness. We need healing from depression, healing from grief. It's something that walking responds to all the time. Many kinds of healing. Often, the healing is healing from the loss of control. You know how you feel? Even something as simple as going for a walk can reassert some small sense of control. 10 minutes, a few steps, one step. It's recovery gradually. It's a constant, one step at a time. Now, I want to clarify that I'm talking here about healing, not curing. It's a very, very important distinction. About a month ago or 6 weeks ago, I got a call from a radio station in Seoul, Korea, saying that they wanted to interview me about how I cured my cancer by walking. And they were going to do a medical documentary on the medical benefits of walking. I said, no, I did not cure my cancer by walking. Interviewer said, you didn't? We read on the internet. Well, I said healing and curing are distinct, and different. And it's a confusion I understand. Early in my own cancer experience, I collided with this little difference between heal and cure when I read a book by Jean Shinoda Bolen called Close to the Bone. It's a wonderful book. Jean Shinoda Bolen is a psychiatrist who writes very well about the impact of life upsetting events, any kind of thing, on your spirit, your soul. Early in that book, like about page 12, she wrote something that sounded to me like the words were, you don't have to be cured to be healed. I slammed the book shut. I wanted nothing short of cure. I wanted cure. Heal. You don't have to be healed to be cured. No, thank you. I didn't want to understand about the difference. Then a couple months after that, I collided again with this same issue and these same words. I'm a word person, and so I was bashing at them. I decided I was going to walk in the Komen Race for the Cure. Do they have a Komen Race for the Cure here? Okay. So a wonderful, incredible event. I had to go to Portland because we didn't have one in Eugene. There were 10,000 people in this event. I had signed up online, and the registration form said, are you a survivor or a supporter? And I just sort of went ballistic. I said, no, I'm a victim. I'm a cancer victim. How can I say I'm a survivor? I'm a patient. I'm not a survivor. I don't know. That seems presumptuous. How could I say that? I'm not a supporter. I'm in it. And I called my friend Pat because she's 1 year ahead of me in the cancer cycle. She'd been my mentor, and I said, Pat, I'm furious about this. Here's this race that's supposed to be for me, cancer patients, and it doesn't even acknowledge me. And she sort of said, Carolyn, take a breath. She said, here's the question. Are you alive today? And then she kind of waited, and I said, yeah, I'm beginning to get this. Okay, she said, if you're alive today, you're a survivor. That's all there is. That's all there ever is. And I thought, okay, today I'm a survivor. Well, okay, I began to shift. Then I got to the race, and I had to put on one of those pink shirts that says, I have cancer, or I have had cancer. I have on the pink shirt. There are thousands of pink shirts. It's overwhelming to see the impact. On the back of the shirt, it's on my back too, but I'm in this crowd of women, men and women, but this crowd of people wearing shirts that say on the back, in pink, I will survive. I have so much life to live. I have so much love to give. I will survive. And then I had to fight again in myself. How can you say I will survive? How can I say that with certainty? How do I know that? I don't have any hair. I don't have much strength. I will survive. And I cried, and I fought, and I walked. And then I got home, and those words were still in my head. I will survive. I have so much life to live. I have so much love to give. And it happened, what happens to me sometimes with words, was they go into a cadence. And I began to learn to walk to say, here and now, I'm alive. Here and now, I survive. And it became a healing mantra. This is what I mean about walking. I make it my prayer, my affirmation, and it controls the craziness in my head. Here and now, I'm alive. And I stopped waiting for a cure, for a blood test, for a guarantee that I was cured, because there is no such thing for cancer. Here and now, I'm alive. And so then I took this energy into writing Healing Walks for Hard Times, and I decided I didn't want it only to be about me or only about cancer, because healing is much bigger than that. So I went back to my journalistic roots, and I started looking for people to interview. People who had used walking as a significant tool, as a route to healing from other life-threatening situations. And I met some amazing people. I met Tammy Burns. Tammy Burns lives in Springfield, Missouri. Tammy Burns, at age 40, weighed 575 pounds. She was a college graduate who had worked as a recreation therapist in nursing homes in Springfield, but at 575 pounds, she was on disability. She could not work. She could not leave her home, basically. She couldn't drive a car. She couldn't get in a car. She couldn't get in the shower. She had 12 medically diagnosed conditions, including diabetes, sleep apnea, an enlarged heart, hypertension. She decided life was not very good, and she tried to commit suicide. She failed at suicide, and then she decided if God wanted her to live, she had better learn how to live. And learning how to live meant she had better lose some weight. So she began working on her weight very, very intentionally. She began working on her weight by going to diet control programs, and in 4 years of working on her weight, she lost 170 pounds. Now, that's a lot of weight, but she still weighed 400 pounds. And she was still having medical problems. In fact, now the doctor said she needed a tracheotomy because she was having so much trouble breathing. She got a tracheotomy, and she hated this signal of her disability. And they said, if you lose 120 more pounds, we can take it out. That would get her down to 280 or something. So she said, okay. She went to a medical center that was, to a fitness center affiliated with the hospital where she'd gotten her treatment. Started walking in the lap pool, you know, those waist-high walking lap pools. Because of her weight. So she as she got a little stronger, I don't know the times on this exactly, but as she got stronger, she added on riding 5 minutes on the bicycle. And as she got finally a little more stronger, she started walking on, they had a track, an indoor track at the center. And when she was on the track, Colleen Young found her, and Colleen was a trainer at the center. And she watched Tammy walking on the track, and she went up and she said, girl, I think I should be your coach. Tammy was shocked, but she said, okay, I'll walk with you. And Tammy was at, I don't know whether it was a year, at 303 pounds, Tammy and Colleen walked a 5K, 3-mile walk. And Tammy got hooked. When I talked to her a year and a half ago, She was down to 160 pounds. 7 years. It took 7 years from the suicide attempt. And she was training to be a College of Sports Medicine certified wellness advisor. And she was training to be a race walker. And she says, let me tell you what she said. My success isn't simply that I have lost this incredible amount of weight. My success is that I have gotten up one more time to try again. Attitude is everything. Nice, huh? And I met Stephen Godet, who lives in San Francisco, and Stephen is an asthmatic. He was diagnosed with asthma at age 2. It's progressed to fixed asthma. I mean, his lungs are damaged. He has very reduced lung capacity. All of his childhood, he was kind of the weakling in the bunch. He was sick all the time. He was hospitalized a lot. Not too surprising, he trained to be a respiratory therapist. I mean, it was something he knew. Worked in a hospital until in his 40s, he too was let go because of disability. He was in the hospital more than he was at work. So he sat at home for a year in front of his television, thinking that it was over. And then it was a major depression. And then he said, well, I'm a respiratory therapist. I mean, I should be able to do something for myself. At least I'll walk to the grocery store. So his trip to the grocery store from his house and back was a half mile total. A quarter mile there, a quarter mile back. And he started doing that once a day. Had his inhaler along with him. And then that got a little longer and a little longer. And he decided he liked walking, and he could walk. There were risks. I mean, sometimes he really did get into trouble. But in 2009, he walked the Boston Marathon. 26 miles in a special category for people with physical disabilities. The normal deadline on the Boston Marathon is like 6 hours. You have to finish in 6 hours or you can't be in it. He finished in 7 hours and 23 minutes. He went into the hospital afterwards. He had to have medical permission to do it. He says it's absolutely worth it. It's changed his life. He went back and did it in 2010. He says, here's what he said. Walking has given me the confidence to do things. Walking definitely makes me feel better about myself. Stephen now has a blog. I look at it every once in a while. He lives in the Bay Area, San Francisco. And he has people who say, you inspire me. Asthmatics are being inspired by him. It's a wonderful, he's just making a wonderful difference. And I met Elvira Crocker. Now, some of you may know Elvira Crocker. She lives in Wichita. She was one of 13 children raised in a Mexican family in western Kansas. Grew up, went to college, became a journalist, spent most of her professional life in Washington, D.C., working for national agencies, and was diagnosed in her 40s with diabetes. She knew, because she's an intelligent woman and her family had a history of diabetes. She knew that this was a significant thing. Latinos have a higher diabetes rate, as do blacks, than Anglos, and so she was aware of this. 2 of her siblings had died. 2 of those 13 children had died of heart disease related to diabetes. She knew she had to do something. She started walking. And here's what Elvira said to me. I just have to read it because it's so good. What I learned early on about diabetes is that it takes 3 things to manage it: diet, medication, and exercise. She shakes her head in disbelief at diabetics who rely on drugs and diet but omit exercise as a third tool for controlling blood sugar. Frankly, I just don't get it, she says. Exercise makes me feel better. I find I have more energy when I exercise. My mood is fairly even, and it helps with weight control. Really? How hard is it? You pick up one foot and then the other. For me, exercise isn't optional. It's a matter of life and death. Well, so those people are all people, and many others, that I talked to who found walking to be a tool. The interesting thing about walking, is both the physical and metaphorical power of taking one step at a time in a hard time. The metaphorical power of saying, at least I'm moving. At least I'm not stuck. The physical result, however, is stress release. And a very, very useful adjunct is walkers who focus their thoughts, focus their minds when they walk, achieve stress release faster than walkers who just go out and say, I'm going to go out and let my mind wander. Why is that? What happens to your mind when you let it wander? It gets real busy, at least mine does. Herbert Benson, who is a landmark researcher in mind-body health, he's a cardiologist, wrote a book years ago now called The Relaxation Response, which some of you may know. It was quite a wonderful book. And he has many books since then, Timeless Healing. But he has found in his research that walkers who simply say mentally, in, out, as they walk, nothing more, just that, achieve measurable stress release in their body faster than walkers who go out and say, I just want to let my mind relax. It's a tool to speed up the efficiency of your body's recovery system, to create a break in the turmoil, especially in hard times turmoil. You have to make a kind of conscious choice to say in, out, or left, right, or I'm alive, I survive. Something that stops the swirl of what if, what next, why that. That's what causes the stress. That's what raises the cortisol. What lets it come down and the endorphins come up is to control it and to get the oxygen going. Do I sound like a missionary? I can't help it. I got the religion. I truly believe in it. There are lots of statistics, and you read them every single day about why you should walk, but the hardest thing is actually getting the motivation, making it happen. The stories I told you about Stephen and Elvira and Tammy, they all found ways to keep motivation, and what some of the things they did was walk in organized events. That helps. It gives you energy of being with other people. Go to an organization, go to a facility where you have some connection with other people. Once in a while, not every walk, but make a walk date with people. Have a trainer. Have a trainer helps keep you on track. Shirley helped Tammy. Writing, like Stephen, blogging. Writing has been a really way. Now he records what he does, and we know that journal and logging really help people stay motivated. It's a reward system. You see that you did something. These ways are kind of little ways to give yourself nudges that keep you moving. And there's been some research lately also about the power of a gentle nudge. Stanford released a study in May of this year that I think is quite fascinating. They recruited a group of 300 people and asked them, in this study, to participate in a research project which asked them to commit to try to meet the U.S. Surgeon General's recommendation that we all get 30 minutes of exercise most days of the week. This is the current advice we're given. 30 minutes of moderate exercise most days of the week. And for the purposes of this study, they asked people to walk. They recruited walkers. So they had all these 300 people said, yes, I will commit to make this a goal. It'll be my target this year. And they all had recorded what their level of walking was prior to entering, so they had some record of that. Then they divided into 3 groups. 1/3 of those walkers got a weekly phone call from somebody in the research project saying, hey, it's week 5, and I hope you're having a great time on this program and you're finding it successful and writing down your results. And you know, this goal of walking every day is just a wonderful one, and we're glad you're participating. Thank you. 1/3 got a phone call every week from a computer who said the same thing. Just sort of say, thank you for being on the study, and it's week 6, and whatever. 1/3 got no calls. They just had their agreement. No nudges. At the end of a year, they discovered that people who got no call increased their walking time over the previous year by 25%. So there was the power of the commitment to say, I agree to take this challenge, to try to walk 30 minutes a day most days. The people that got a phone call from the computer increased their walking time over the previous year 50%. And the people that got the first personal phone call saying the same thing increased their walking time over the previous year 75%. And the study report, the researchers say it demonstrates to them, really, and to all of us, the power of a positive nudge. This is no tisk tisk, this is no should, or good for you even. It's remember your goal, remember your target, remember your intention. Good for you, go for it. So maybe you can find a way. Coming here is a gentle nudge, right? When you come to lunch and lecture programs, you're nudging yourself in the direction of living a healthy life. Maybe your gentle nudge is someone that you walk with and you say, we should be doing this twice a week instead of once. Or maybe it's someone you walk with and you say, let's record let's measure, get some pedometers. We'll see how far we're walking. You'll walk farther, trust me. It's really fun. And maybe you'll get a nudge. One nudge could be from this handout I made you. And you've probably seen this. On the back here, there's a little outline of some walking ideas. Some of these techniques that I've talked about, there's the tools of getting your mind and body working together. This might be a nudge. Keep this in a place where you see it, and it might remind you to go out and walk. Find ways to give yourself a positive, gentle nudge. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's a powerful tool. The most important thing is not how often you walk or how long that you walk, but that you walk. 10 minutes. Okay. And then I'm going to stop. Robert Thayer, who's a wonderful researcher about exercise and mood. Robert Thayer is a researcher at California State University, Long Beach. Wrote a book called The Origins of Everyday Moods. Thayer has done a lot of studies of the correlation between walking and mood. And he has found that 10 minutes of walking, 10 minutes at a pace that picks up your breathing just a bit, 10 minutes can increase energy for up to 2 hours. Now that is an incredible payback. 2 hours of elevated energy for 10 minutes of walking. Especially important in this is the correlation between energy, elevated energy, and elevated mood. And you know this in your own experience. When your energy's up, your mood tends to be up. When your energy sags, it's that, ugh. 10 minutes. 10 minutes can raise your energy for up to 2 hours. It's a very, very valuable investment. So it doesn't take long, it just takes repetition. It's a journey that goes day by day, one step at a time, and thank you for letting me talk to you about it. And now I'd be happy to have questions if you have some. I know that I've jumped around a lot, so there's one back there.
A question that I've noticed as I get older.
Yeah, I noticed that.
When I walk now, I get more of a positive effect in walking than I did when I was younger. Has there been a study done on that?
Not that I know of. I think it may be your maturity is helping you. But
people talk about endorphins and that, and I just never experienced that. And it seems like in the last couple of years, I'm feeling it now.
What is going on in your head when you're walking? What are you doing?
I don't know, probably letting my mind go.
Well, yeah.
But I do know that I walk a lot more often, longer.
Well, so, and whether you feel those endorphins or not, you're getting them. I mean, really, they are being produced in your body by the flow of oxygen that's coming. It doesn't mean you have to get that high. You just get elevated mood. But actually, I have no knowledge of anything that says we get better as we get older, but I like the idea. Yeah. Other questions?
I'll bring the microphone around. Any other questions?
Here's one, Penny.
At what pace do you walk? What speed?
Did you hear that? What?
At what speed?
I walk 3 miles an hour.
That's
My
a
wi-
20-minute pace.
I beg pardon?
That's 20 minutes a mile.
Right.
Yeah.
My wife walks 3.5 miles an hour. So
Wow.
we usually don't walk together because of that. So
Yeah.
should I try to increase my pace to 3.5 miles per hour?
Well, how does 3 miles feel to you? How does
Good, good. I
does
like it.
it increase your breathing level a bit?
Yes.
It's perfect. Stay there.
Okay.
But don't tell her to slow down,
No.
because I like to walk fast sometimes. I mean, you know, I used to be a race walker, so it feels good to me to walk fast, to walk hard. But I don't walk as hard like I used to. But I mean, it feels good. But it doesn't matter, because I know even walking at a 15 or 17-minute pace, my breathing is increased. That's what matters. Yeah.
Other questions?
Compare running with walking as far as positives and negatives.
Well, running hurts a lot more. Actually, I do think that there's a lot to be said for walking over running. But the fact is, running, you can get an aerobic benefit from running faster than from walking at a normal pace. Now, when you're race walking or walking at 12-minute pace, which is a good pace and people can do it, you're going to get a good aerobic workout. But running, it's easier to get the aerobic workout. With walking, you have to work harder. What I found was that if I wanted to make my walking aerobic, I had to get my mind into it more, because my body, the momentum of my body wasn't carrying me like it does in running. And so you have to put your mind into it, and I like that. The downside of running, of course, is that it gets the knees, and almost everybody who's been a runner for very long ends up having to convert to walking, and they grouse about it. People say to me, I don't like it nearly as much. You have to learn and untrain, learn how to walk. What else should I say about that? That's
Fine, it's very interesting. But also, with running, they're very likely damage to the spinal cord too, right? Yeah. Because of the constant.
well, there is that cause the impact. I mean, it's all the joints will feel that. On the other hand, there's some evidence that impact adds for bone strength. So you have balances that you have to weigh. I have to be fair about that, because impact does build bone strength. So there. Mm-hmm.
I think our thoughts have everything to do with our physical bodies.
They have a lot to do with it, but you have to move your physical body also. I mean, you can't just sit and think healthy. That's a good way to start.
I don't mean that.
Okay, I see. But you mean,
Just generally speaking, or generally, our thoughts control our bodies also.
yes, of course, it's so much of my early life my thoughts said, I'm a klutz, I'm going to fall down, I'm going to trip on a crack. I don't do physical. That was my mind. And it made it true. I tripped, I fell. Now my mind says I'm a graceful, active person. I mean, I am. And that's also true. But I had to change the words as I changed the activity. I mean, they do go together. So.
The gentleman that was talking about the difference between you and your wife, my husband and I have that problem. So when he says, do you want to go for a walk, I always say, is this for a healthy walk? And if it is, no, thank you. But if we're just going to go out and walk,
And stroll.
yeah, then I grit my teeth and say, oh, yes. So we do. That's the difference.
So if you want to have a stroll, because you're going to be companionable, I mean, and you don't, it's not aerobic. One thing that's really kind of good to do is what I call a sensory scan. And it's like, use that time to be absolutely present. Do you talk to your husband when you're doing these strolls? Well, tell him you want 10 minutes of not talking. 10 minutes of not talking. And use it to just say, okay, I'm here and I'm seeing. And as you walk, because you're strolling, really, 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 really see things. And then say, I'm smell. What do you smell? I hear. And take 10 minutes to focus totally on your environment as you stroll through it. That is a form of meditation that brings you really present and stops other things in your mind. And the other thing it does, oh, this is so fun. Dean and I had dinner last week with an old high school classmate of mine. Well, he's old, yeah. But he's a researcher in our aging brains. And Mike says that, Mike Mersnick, he's done a lot of wonderful work in brain plasticity, and says that what our brains want is surprise. And that when we go out, and so I talked to him about my walks, and he said, well, when we go out and do this sensory thing, when I'm saying I'm seeing, what I'm doing is asking my mind to find a little surprise, to notice something, to smell something, to hear something. And so I feel like I'm doing my brain good too, and as well as being present. That brings you so present in the moment that you can't be, well, what are we going to do tomorrow? Well, I don't know about that. And then that stuff. Other comments, questions?
What about walking the dog? How does that impact?
You have to train your dog to walk. Now, this is the hardest part. It is, yeah, because, I mean, lots of times the dog kind of sniffs and wanders around and roams around. And I think if you want a healthy walk, you have to let your dog do that for the first 5 or 10 minutes, and then you have to say, now we're going to walk. We're going to walk for 5 minutes without stopping, so that at least you can get that rhythm in your body. I mean, that's a really valuable. The rhythm is a part of balance also, of restoring stability, both emotionally and physically. So, on the other hand, I have also a story in the book about a walker who walked, a wonderful man in Tennessee whose son died of a drug overdose, and his healing came in walking his son's dogs. And for a while, for a year, he was lost in his head. But then he began watching the dogs and used them as his coach, so that if the dog heard something, then Terry would stop and try to hear what he was hearing or see. So he let the dog be his guide to the environment. There are many ways. There are many tools. Yeah. Yeah.
The words you say to yourself when you walk, do you ever say them out loud, or do you have to keep them inside?
Well, you have to keep them inside, because otherwise you'll mess up your breathing pattern. Really. And breathing is the foundation. Breathing is crucial. Getting full, even breath. So if you're saying things out loud, if you're talking to your walking partner, your breathing pattern is not as full as it is if you keep it as internal. I mean, if you're just... and a lot of I didn't really talk very much about breath, but a lot of what I teach in classes is to just say in, out, so that you get that pattern established with the breathing. It's what your body needs. And your brain. Improves memory, improves problem-solving ability, many incredible things the oxygen does.
Any other questions? Those are all great.
In
Yeah.
this book, Healing Walks for Hard Times, do you tell the stories of some of these people you interviewed?
I love them. The stories I told you are all in the book. And so is Terry with his dog. And they were wonderful people. And they're all over the country, and I found them using my journalistic background by prowling the internet, reading magazines, newspapers, or any story that seemed... And many people said, no, I don't want to be interviewed. I don't want to tell. I'm not ready yet. And I just would ask somebody else. And I found people. My Christmas letter one year said, anybody you know, please tell them, if that is done walking, please have them contact me. And I got one good story You know, it's just what you do. I reached out and thank you.
Carolyn, back to you.
Thank you.